The dust may not have settled yet after the speakership tussle in the Lagos State House of Assembly, which disrupted what many have termed the dramatic emergence of the first woman as speaker. Incidentally, coincidentally, it's happening in the month where we're celebrating women. The return of the ousted speaker, Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa, amidst the glaring dissatisfaction and pain on the faces of the lawmakers, has brought to the fore the issue of whether true democracy exists in Nigeria.
Despite the happened.
My dear and gallant honorable colleagues, this is a notice of resignation as Speaker of the 10th Assembly. Once again, history beckoned on me to make personal sacrifice towards resolving the steaming, implacable leadership crisis rocking this assembly of patriots. I come from the illustrious Lawal Akapo family of Lagos. My family has played and shall continue to play defining roles in entrenching democracy, good governance, and the development of our people. I will never depart from the well-established path of honor, dignity, integrity, and the service as personified by my late father.
Despite the resignations and the reorganizing that happened at the Lagos State House of Assembly on Monday, the resignation of Right Honorable Mojisola Meranda seems to have hit the bone marrow of political stalwarts who have questioned if truly democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people, or if it is a government of a few, by a few, and for the few. Join us this morning to look at the speakership tussle and its impact on politics and democracy, perceived as a member of the PDP and 2023 gubernatorial candidate, Funso Doherty. A warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you.
Now, we've all witnessed the happenings in the Lagos State House Assembly. Some have likened it to a Nollywood drama. Earlier this year, we saw the speaker, Obasa, was removed. And 2 weeks ago, and just last week, he came back. He was removed by an overwhelming majority. Is this democracy in action or blatant case of power manipulation? What do you think happened behind closed doors?
Well, I describe these developments really as demonstrating that what we have appears to be a government by proxy. And what I mean in saying that is that those who are in office are not really those in power, right? So there are those that we see, and but there are those behind them who are unelected. We don't know all of them. It's a small group, and they control those who are in office. It negates, in many ways, the principles of democracy, because you think about democracy, it developed from monarchies and those kinds of systems. And the idea is that democracy gives people a voice, right, in their government. And the main forum where they have that voice is in the House of Assembly, the legislative body. And so it's particularly troubling when we see this, this capture of the legislative body and the voice of the people that we've seen in the Assembly. So I think it has serious implications. It has far-reaching implications, actually. And one of them, I'll just mention one of them, is that when you see this kind of development, it is associated with extractive societies rather than inclusive societies, because what then happens is that you have a small group who are the privileged group who capture the resources of the society, they extract the resources of the society, and therefore you do not have an inclusive environment to foster broad-based growth.
All right. You found this very uncomfortable, and then you've put out a statement on the recent leadership crisis in the Lagos State House of Assembly.
Yeah.
In that letter, you addressed different categories. You addressed first the members of the Lagos State House of Assembly. You addressed Honorable Mojisola Meranda, you addressed the APC leadership and its unelected GAC, and you also addressed your fellow Lagosians. Let's start with the members of the Lagos State House of Assembly. You did say in the letter there, you said you are each elected to represent the voice of the people of Lagos in government. By the office you occupy, Lagosians clothe you with the authority and charge you with responsibility to represent their interest with integrity and courage. Let's talk about the role that the House of Assembly members played in this whole debacle.
Yeah.
From the initial removal of Obasa to electing Mojisola Meranda, and now celebrating the return of Obasa. What is the role of the Lagos State House of Assembly members in this whole debacle?
Well, I characterize their role as unfortunate, to be honest. I think they started off in a good direction. From what we see on the outside, collectively, overwhelmingly, by an overwhelming majority, they chose to remove the speaker, the previous speaker, and they gave reasons why they did that. And they were at pains to do that. They did it decisively. They were very vocal in what they did. And so we, who they are representing, that's our voice.
And there was even a vote of confidence in the new speaker.
And then subsequently a vote of confidence in the new speaker and all that. So that's the voice of the people. Now, it is now apparent that that has been overruled by forces behind the scenes. And what that means is that, the desires and the wishes of that group has been placed above, the sovereignty of the people.
Who might these forces behind the scenes be?
Well, I mean, so there's the party leadership, and there's this GAC, which we talked about, which is an organ. I don't know if it's a formal organ of the APC, but it's supposedly an organ of the APC. Not a constitutional body, not an elected body, but it seems to wield tremendous influence in the APC structure. And that is problematic. I think that the fact that the House of Assembly, the legislators could not hold their own and had to back down is unfortunate on the one hand, but also it sends a message that, going forward, what should we expect? What do we expect to be the things that will be driving them? What will they stand for? Whose interest will they be advancing? And do we really have representation in this government? And I think the answer is really no.
Now, Mr. Doherty, APC supporters would argue and say, this is sophistication. That it's a sophisticated way of handling grievances, that they are a party and their members have internal mechanisms of dealing with issues like this. And if you look at it, no law was broken. You could look at the moral side of it and say, things are not really okay. But they will say, look, no laws are broken. We haven't done anything wrong. You should actually celebrate us, because in other states, this could have degenerated into violence and unrest. Is there anything here worth celebrating?
I think there is nothing worth celebrating. You see, you cannot foment a crisis and then say that, celebrate us for resolving a crisis that we fomented. There's no need for a crisis. The people have made their decision. Just leave them be with their decision. There will be no crisis. So you can't insist that they reverse their decision and then say, okay, if they don't back down, there's going to be a crisis, and so commend me, for making them back down. It's asinine. We will not accept that. So I think that if we are clear-eyed in how we approach this, if we are clear-eyed in how we look at it, this is not evidence of sophistication. This is evidence of a capture of the democratic process, and it's reflective of an institutional environment, within that political structure that is hegemonic, right? It's monolithic, and it's not accepting of diversity of views.
All right, I want us to talk about the second angle of your second part of your letter addressed to Mojisola Meranda. I was saying earlier in my introduction that it's unfortunate that we're having this conversation in International Women's Month, where this would have been a landmark celebration, the first female speaker in the Lagos State House of Assembly. Unfortunately, her tenure lasted just 7 weeks. What role do you think she has played in all of this? Could she have done anything different? Did she really have a say in what's happened so far?
So, it's a bit complex, but simple in a way. So, Honorable Meranda was basically in a crucible, right? And this is something that leaders face from time to time. And, the judgments or the choices that a leader makes when you are in the crucible, when you are in a storm, is a defining, that's what defines you. So we understand that she was under tremendous pressure. We know that. Personally, I believe she should have stood firm. I think she may have underestimated the support and the way Lagosians stood with her outside of that immediate party structure. We as Lagosians certainly stood by her. And I think that she would not have lacked support had she insisted that she would not back down. And if the reps who appointed her want to remove her, let them remove her.
Do you think she was?
I think that this idea that that this argument that is made about representation and Lagos West, and I think is disingenuous. Yorubas have something we call awawi, and I think that that's what this is. This is just, we're just looking for something to justify an action, because you are saying that a group is disenfranchised, which represents, a third by senatorial district, right? But there's no woman in this structure that you're talking about. So you are disenfranchising one group by enfranchising another group. And, women are maybe about half of the population, if not more.
Like minus 1 plus 1.
Yeah, so, to me, it's not an argument.
Do you think she was a placeholder in a bigger political game?
You mean as part of this whole debacle?
Maybe not knowingly.
Maybe not knowingly, but I mean that's what she has been made to be now, right? I'm sure that's not what her colleagues intended when they put her forward, because remember, she was the deputy speaker.
Yeah.
So it's not as if she didn't have some leadership sort of stature. She was advanced as speaker when the Speaker Obasa was removed. So, it's turned out now that she's become almost like a victim of the process. But I would argue that while recognizing the tremendous pressures that she was under, I would argue that, there were other courses of action that were open to her. And I don't think as a leader she took full advantage of them.
Now let's look at the people, the Lagosians, 20 million plus of them. You talk about a captured House of Assembly. Now, given the dominance of a single party that we've seen in Lagos, what does this mean for legislative independence? Is it even possible for the people to have their say in the affairs of Lagos State? Because what this episode has shown is, you don't have a say in all of this. You might vote in elections every 4 years, but you really don't have a say, and that's a danger for our democracy.
It is a danger for a democracy. Anywhere where you have, where you have a very narrow span of control, it's a danger, and it is anti-democratic in a sense. And the dominance operates on multiple levels. So you have the dominance of the space by the APC. And we can argue about what is the extent of that dominance and so on. But, they've been pretty much at the helm of affairs for almost, 27 years now. But even within the APC, which is maybe even the more problematic part of it, there is dominance within the APC. There's a dominant power block within the APC. And in particular, I think the president is far too powerful in the context of the APC machinery. So when you think about it, the level of control is just tremendous. And what that means...
You think the president is still interested in the happenings in Lagos? He's busy with national security issues, with dealing with the economy in Abuja. Do you think he has a part to play in what is... He's not been governor for almost 8 years now.
Well, anybody who lives in Lagos, and has lived in Lagos, I think, for the past 20 years, knows the tremendous power that the president wields within the APC structure. And it may not just only be the president, be a small group around the president, but it's a power block. That's a monolithic power block that controls things. And so when legislators, 36 legislators representing Lagosians across the states make a decision, and that is overruled, right? It tells you that, you know, there's a high concentration of power sitting somewhere else, right? Now, what does this mean for the people? I think that people have to question and ask the question that, you know, when they go out there and they exercise their mandate and their franchise to vote, what are they voting for? The institution and the platforms that the people are coming on. What is the nature of those platforms? If you elect, what this tells me is that if you elect a legislator on the platform of the APC, you are basically electing a proxy whose decisions can easily be overruled by a bloc. And therefore, this will reveal the nature, the essential nature of that institution. And then it's back to the electorate to now take a step back. And as they plan the exercise of their mandate looking forward in subsequent elections, one of the things they must take into consideration is that this candidate that I'm voting, either as senator, either as governor, either as legislator, is that person going to be a governor who is in office only, or is he going to be a governor who is in office and in power? And that is a decision that people will have to make. So am I voting somebody who is going to take the decisions, who I trust to take the decisions, or am I voting somebody who represents some other, you know, forces?
I want to go back to what you had said earlier when we were talking about the concentration of the powers of the president in Lagos.
Yeah.
You had also made reference to the GAC and,
Yeah.
you know, talked about how, I mean, I'm not quite sure, so I want you to clarify. Do you think that the GAC is behind what has happened? Do you think that the president is behind what has happened? Is that what you're inferring?
So I think that clearly the GAC, by all that's been reported, I'm not obviously a member of the APC, so I'm not privy to their internal workings. But based on what has been represented, it's clear that the GAC played a role in this process, and even some of the comments made by the leadership of the GAC that were reported in the press indicate as much. It's also been indicated variously that, you know, perhaps this speaker, the speaker who has come back, you know, enjoys the support of the president. I suspect, okay, as we all do, that the return of the speaker could not have happened without the consent, at a minimum, the consent of the president.
So what could be the bigger picture at play here? Because, like we mentioned, they had valid reasons for removing him in the first place. What could be the bigger political picture that maybe the rest of us are missing as to why all of this is happening?
So, you know, there may be political considerations in terms of the role that someone like Obasa might occupy within their political structure now, not the government structure. And so there's a concern, there might be a concern that, you know, that monolithic structure, the sustenance of themselves in power and so on, is threatened, you know, if an enemy is made of Obasa. This is one possible explanation. Like I said, I'm not a member of the APC. So if that's the calculation, then you may say, okay, well, you know, if this will be a threat to our political dominance and to our maintaining and sustaining ourselves in power, then maybe we'll sacrifice the will of the people to accomplish this, you know, as a short-term measure and so on and so forth. Now, that may be a political calculation that is made, but it doesn't change the nature of what has transpired. It doesn't change the outcome and the effect and how people will perceive it. And it's not going to come without cost. And I think the cost will be significant. By the time, you know, we're mid-cycle now, by the time the next election rolls around, I think we will see some of the costs of what appears right now. It seems as if a problem has been solved and so on and so forth. But really, there are a couple of losers.
Will the people remember in 2 years' time when we have elections?
It's our job to remind them.
I mean, looking at
it's our job to remind them as opposition
and talking
politicians.
about the opposition party and opposition politicians in Lagos, I'd like to come in here. We've had the dominance of one party in different forms since 1999. Some will argue that the reason why the APC in Lagos gets away with all of this is because of a lack of a viable opposition. Just a few days ago, the former gubernatorial candidate of your party, Dr. Adediran, threw in the towel. He said internal wranglings in the PDP, Jando, and all of that. Now, what is your party, the PDP, doing to break this hegemony that you've described in Lagos State? Or are you waiting for 2027 at the polls before you take action? I know you're very active in writing about issues. You've talked about the Lagos Calabar, you've gone to court and so many issues like that. And people will say, this is a sophisticated way of running opposition, that Nigerians want somebody that will make noise, they want a grassroots politician, that you're too much of a gentleman. How do you respond to that?
Well, the fact that you're seeing things in the public space does not mean that there's no stuff going on the grassroots. But you may not see what's going on the grassroots. So that's the first thing. The second is that, to say that there is no opposition, I think is not true. I mean,
we've had a party win elections consistently since 1999.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that people have not contested against them. It doesn't mean that they have won all the votes. I mean, some of the elections have been closer than other elections. But yes, it is true that they have remained. And part of the reason how they remained is by using every opportunity to consolidate their power base, using the resources of the state and all of that, which this is part of what we're seeing. But I would say that even if you look at the last election, you will see that this so-called and by the way, the margins by which they have won every election has been declining. The number of votes has been declining. And Lagos State in the last election had maybe about 15% turnout. It tells you that, it's not a popular victory. Do you see what I mean? So, and there's a lot going on. And I think that you should stay tuned, because the trend that we started observing, which we saw a lot of it in the last election, we will see much more of that as we get into 2027. Let me touch very briefly on the comment you made about, the PDP and the previous gubernatorial candidate leaving, and some of the comments he made about. What you have to remember is that when people take actions like this and when they write things about the actions they are taking, there's a reality, but there's also the perception that they want to paint. And you have to realize that those two things may not be the same, right? People make statements to reflect, the perception they want to create. Could there be are there internal squabbles within the party and so on? I think there's no political party that doesn't have internal squabbles.
He specifically said Bode George through his support behind the Labour Party and has now been made the chairman of the disciplinary committee. So he doesn't see why he should still stay in a party where the chieftain in the party doesn't believe in him, doesn't have faith in him.
Well, I think that may be, that is something that he, as an individual candidate, will have to assess. You also have to ask the question, was Bode George acting alone? Did he enjoy the support of the larger party? You cannot force support, in a sense, right? If people lose confidence in you, and I'm speaking generally, if people lose confidence in you, they've lost confidence in you. As a candidate, you can be a divisive candidate. You can be a divisive candidate and create those conditions and that you complain about. Do you see what I mean? So I think that we have to assess it in all its dimensions, right? And not just on the basis of what one person says.
So from what you see, do you think that the party has lost faith in or confidence in Jando, and will you be replacing Jando?
Well, what I would say ultimately is the party that determines who its gubernatorial candidate will be when the next election comes around.
But do you have ambitions?
I have no, there's no reason why I will not pursue a gubernatorial ambition, right? There's no reason why. So when the next election rolls around, I likely will be in the game, and ultimately the party will make that decision. I will say that, the things he complained about, do I see them as obstacles or whatever? I'm not perturbed, no. I think that the platform of the party remains strong. I think he may not have enjoyed the support of the party, and there are many reasons why. But you cannot force people, and
give us an insight into why you think he may not have enjoyed the support of the party.
No, it's from his statement, it's part of what he has said. It's part of what he has said.
Yeah, he said he didn't get, but you said there are many reasons why he didn't support.
I said there might be many reasons why that is. You can't point to one thing and say this is why he did not. If he did not enjoy the support, he did not enjoy the support. It's the reality. You see what I mean?
Okay. But so what we're concluding in essence is you'll be glad to replace Jandor?
Well, I will be, if the party chooses to have me as their candidate, I will accept it with all alacrity.
All right.
Now, you took the federal government to court last year, mid last year, on the Lagos-Calabar superhighway. You talked about lack of environmental assessment, and also the bidding process wasn't transparent enough. What's the latest with that case? How's it going?
I think it's going well. We've had a couple of court dates, and actually the case is coming up for substantive. All the motions and counter motions and affidavits and so on have been filed, and so it's coming up for substantive hearing. I think on the 18th or 19th of this month, so which is in another week and a half or so, and following that we'll adjourn for judgment. So I think we're making progress.
Well, APC supporters say, look, this is a monumental project. It's going to bring a lot of investment and open up that corridor. That why are you going against that? It's an anti-progressive move by filing that court case in the first place.
In the first place, and this is the first thing, and I have said this, I'm on record on this, in writing, actually. I'm not opposed to the coastal road. I'm opposed to the process for awarding the coastal road. And, the coastal road decision is a decision that is taken by, the leadership, the government, executive council, and so on. And there are benefits. Whether the benefits outweigh the cost, whether there are other projects that could be more beneficial, those are issues that can be debated. And that's not my contention. My contention is that having decided you want to do this project, the process is critical. You cannot award within a short time of coming to government. When there's tremendous hardship on the people, the country is in terrible debt, the people are suffering. You now award a contract for just the first part, 2.5 trillion, without competitive bidding, to a single contractor who is known to be associated with the leadership of the government. You just cannot do that. And, the implications and the reason why I've chosen to take a stand on this is that this goes to the heart of a problem of underdevelopment in Nigeria, right? Because at the end of the day, this is what fuels people doing the wrong projects.
Culture of impunity.
The culture of impunity will spend money on the wrong things, or even if we spend them on the right things, we don't get value for money. We spend 10 naira for 1 naira worth of value. And this is why, after 30 years, you keep asking the question, why have we not progressed? Why have we not progressed? It is serial decisions like this. So this is something on which, because it is such a big project, it is so visible, the facts are in the public domain, it is important to take a stand and make an example of it. And maybe through this, we will fix that culture of impunity and people will start following the laws.
All right. Okay, now my final question would be your concern regarding political parties and the influence that they wield in Nigeria's politics. Jandor wouldn't be the first person to leave the PDP for the AP. Well, we don't know if he's going to the APC yet, but the speculations are, many people have started to speculate, and many people say, oh, he might be the APC. And why the APC is coming up? It's because we're starting to see a number of people in most recent times moving to the APC. APC has had a huge influence, for example, in Lagos State, which is, where your constituency is at. Do you think that the PDP will have all that it takes to be able to change the narrative by the next election? And do you worry about, Nigeria becoming a one-party state?
So, I mean, there are concerns that, we're moving in the direction of consolidation as opposed to, a multifarious kind of scenario. But, this notion of some people defecting, I mean, there are some people that have defected to APC, there are some people that have defected from APC to other parties. But if you see more of a trend of people defecting to APC, it's not something that surprises me so much because, you see that in our climb, right? Because people want to identify with the ruling party. So
glory hunters.
We tend to see that, and sometimes the goodies are flowing from the ruling party, and so people align. We've always seen that. And it's a way of, thinking about how do you assess those people subsequently. So I think we'll see that. But I think that that process will not go unchecked. We have a role to play as opposition. I think, my joining the PDP last year should be interpreted in a way as a signal, I think. And I think that, people should just stay tuned. The opposition is not sleeping. We are working. And I think, this is something where you work for 4 years and then you see the result of your work at the end of 4 years. So
very well said.
So let's just stay tuned. Let's just stay tuned.
All right. Funso Doherty, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure speaking with you.
Yes, certainly always a pleasure to have you.